Hello there. Are you ready for tonight's story? Well, tonight I'm going to read you a story that was read to me when I was your age. Can you imagine that? A story that old? Well, it is that old, but the fact that it's still around means it's a great story. It's called The Story of Ferdinand, and it's by Munro Leaf. Are you ready? Once upon a time in Spain, there was a little bull, and his name was Ferdinand. All the other little bulls he lived with would run and jump and butt their heads together. But not Ferdinand. He liked to just sit quietly and smell the flowers. He had a favorite spot out in the pasture under a cork tree. It was his favorite tree, and he would sit in its shade all day and smell the flowers. Sometimes his mother, who was a cow, would worry about him. She was afraid he would be lonesome all by himself. "Why don't you run and play with the other little bulls and skip and butt your head?" she would say. But Ferdinand would shake his head. "I like it better here where I can just sit quietly and smell the flowers." His mother saw that he was not lonesome, and because she was an understanding mother, even though she was a cow, she let him just sit there and be happy. As the years went by, Ferdinand grew and grew until he was very big and strong. All the other bulls who had grown up with him in the same pasture would fight each other all day. They would butt each other and stick each other with their horns. What they wanted most of all was to be picked to fight at the bullfights in Madrid. But not Ferdinand. He just liked to sit just quietly under the cork tree and smell the flowers. One day, 5 men came in very funny hats to pick the biggest, fastest, roughest bull to fight in the bullfights in Madrid. All the other bulls ran around snorting and butting, leaping and jumping, so the men would think that they were very, very strong and fierce and pick them. Ferdinand knew that they wouldn't pick him, and he didn't care. So he went out to his favorite cork tree to sit down. He didn't look where he was sitting, and instead of sitting on the nice cool grass in the shade, he sat on a bumblebee. Well, if you were a bumblebee and a bull sat on you, what would you do? You would sting him, and that's just what this bee did to Ferdinand. Wow! Did it hurt? Ferdinand jumped up with a snort. He ran around puffing and snorting, butting and pawing the ground as if he were crazy. The 5 men saw him, and they all shouted with joy. Here was the largest and fiercest bull of all, just the one for the fights in Madrid. So they took him away for the bullfight in a cart. What a day it was. Flags were flying. Bands were playing. And all the lovely ladies had flowers in their hair. They had a parade into the bull ring. First came the bandoleros with their long, sharp pins with ribbons on them to stick in the bull to make him mad. Next came the picaderos, who rode skinny horses, and they had long spears to stick in the bull and make him madder. Then came the matador, the proudest of all. He thought he was very handsome and bowed to the ladies. He had a red cape and a sword and was supposed to stick the bull last of all. Then came the bull, and you know who that was, don't you? Ferdinand. They called him Ferdinand the Fierce, and the bandoleros were afraid of him, and the picaderos were afraid of him, and the matador was scared stiff. Ferdinand ran into the middle of the ring, and everyone shouted and clapped because they thought he was going to fight fiercely and butt and snort and stick his horns around. But not Ferdinand. When he got into the middle of the ring, he saw the flowers in all the lovely ladies' hair, and he just sat down quietly and smelled. He wouldn't fight and be fierce no matter what they did. He just sat and smelled, and the bandoleros were mad, and the picaderos were mad, and the matador was so mad he cried because he couldn't show off with his cape and his sword. So they had to take Ferdinand home. And for all I know, he is sitting there still, under his favorite cork tree, smelling the flowers just quietly. He is very happy. Ferdinand, he was so different from all the other bulls, and he wouldn't do what the other bulls would do. Ferdinand didn't want to run around and butt heads and fight. He didn't really want to be in the bullfight. And you know, that sort of made Ferdinand smarter than the other bulls, because the bulls in the bullfight got stuck a lot by people with pins and people with spears and people with swords. It was a very dangerous thing. And so Ferdinand really was wiser by being different. We don't all have to be the same. Sometimes being different from everybody else means we're smarter, we're wiser. We don't have to do something just because everybody else does it. We don't have to have something just because everyone else has it. We need to figure out what makes us truly happy, and then be different. Be wise. Be smart. Don't worry about being like everybody else. And don't worry what others think of you when you're not like anybody else. God made us all, but God made us different, because that makes it interesting. You know, Jesus was not like anybody else. He was completely different, and some people really got mad at him because he was so different. He didn't act the way they thought he should. He didn't believe the way they thought he should. He didn't talk the way they thought he should. But Jesus was wiser than anyone else. And he helped us learn that no matter how different we are still loved by God, and we are still children of God, and we don't have to be the same. And you know why Jesus would be different and help us learn that being different is okay? It's because he loves us this much. So be who you are, and God bless you. God bless you that you remember, no matter who you are the beloved child he created you to be. Good night.